Hi, Reebly. It's time for our song. Good morning, dear Earth. Good morning, dear sun. Good morning, dear trees and the flowers, everyone. Good morning, dear bees and the birds in the trees. Good morning to you and good morning to me. Good morning. Now it's time for our morning message. Will you read it with me? Welcome to our 4th week of online STEM. Last week, we built with shapes. Which one was the strongest? Today, we will learn about forces from Mrs. Hopkins. Do you know about forces? You've probably called them a push or a pull. We'll find out more today. Scientist by Andrea Beatty. Ada Twist, scientist. Ada Marie, said not a word till the day she turned 3. She bounced in her crib and looked all around, observing the world, but not making a sound. She learned how to climb and make her big break with a trail of chaos left in her wake. She ran through the day chasing each sound and sight and didn't slow down till she conked out at night. Her parents were frazzled, but tried not to freak as Ada grew bigger and still did not speak. Clearly, your young Ada, with lots in her head, would have something to say when it ought to be said. That's just what happened when Ada turned 3. She tore through the house on a fact-finding spree and climbed up the clock just as high as she could. Her parents yelled, "Stop!" as all good parents would. Ada's chin quivered, but she tried not to cry. She took a deep breath and she simply asked, "Why? Why does it tick? And why does it talk? Why don't we call it a granddaughter clock? Why are there pointy things stuck to a rose? Why are there hairs up inside of your nose?" She started with why, then what, how, and when. By bedtime, she came back to why once again. She drifted to sleep as her dazed parents smiled at the curious thoughts of their curious child, who wanted to know what the world was about. They kissed her and whispered, "You'll figure it out." Her parents kept up with their high-flying kid. Why? What? How? When? Why? Whose questions in chaos both grew as she did. What does it do? Why won't it? What if? Why? When? What? What will it? How does it? Even Miss Greer found her hands were quite full when young Ada's chaos wreaked havoc at school. But this much was clear about Miss Ada Twist. She had all the traits of a great scientist. Look at all that color everywhere. The kids look really happy. The teacher looks pretty freaked. Ada was busy that first day of spring, testing the sounds that make mockingbirds sing, when a horrible stench whacked her right in the nose, a pungent aroma that curled up her toes. "Zowie," said Ada, which got her to thinking, "what is the source of that terrible stinking? And how does a nose know there's something to smell? And does it still stink if there's no nose to tell?" She rattled off questions and tapped on her chin. She'd start at the start, where she ought to begin. A mystery, a riddle, a puzzle, a quest. This was the moment that Ada loved best. Ada did research to learn all she could of smelling and smells, both the stinky and good. One hypothesis Ada thought could be true. The terrible stink came from Dad's cabbage stew. She tested and tested, but soon Ada knew it was time to come up with hypothesis 2. Then zowie, the stink struck again, just like that. Hypothesis 2, it's caused by a cat. The cat couldn't make such a stink on its own. It needed perfume and some fancy cologne. So young Ada tested. The test was a flop. She started again, but her parents yelled, "Stop!" She's putting the cat in the washing machine. I don't know if the kitty can breathe inside there. That might be bad. Ada Marie, to the thinking chair now by the time we count 3. Enough, said her mother. That's it, said her dad. Her parents were frustrated, frazzled, and mad. Why? Ada questioned. Her mother said, no. What? Ada queried. Her father said, go. You've ruined our supper. You've made the cat stink. Enough with your questions. Now sit there and think. She looked at her parents. Her heart turned to goo. Poor Ada Twist didn't know what to do. She sat all alone by herself in the hall, and Ada once more could say nothing at all. And so Ada sat, and she sat, and she sat, and she thought about science and Stu and the cat, and how her experiments made such a big mess. Does it have to be so? Is that part of success? Are messes the problem? And while she was thinking, what was the source of that terrible stinking? Ada Marie did what scientists do. She asked a small question, and then she asked 2. And each of those led her to 3 questions more, and some of those questions resulted in 4. As Ada got thinking, she really dug in. She scribbled her questions and tapped on her chin. She started at why, and then what, how, and when. At the end of the hall, she reached why once again. Her parents calmed down, and they came back to talk. They looked at the hallway and just had to gawk. No patch of bare paint could be seen on the wall. The thinking chair now was the great thinking hall. They watched their young daughter and sighed as they did. What would they do with this curious kid who wanted to know what the world was about? They smiled and whispered, "We'll figure it out." And that's what they did, because that's what you do when your kid has a passion and a heart that's true. They remade their world. Now they're all in the act of helping young Ada sort fiction from fact. She asked lots of questions. How could she resist? It's all in the heart of a young scientist. Do you know what fiction and fact are? We read lots of stories that are fiction. That means they're make-believe. But fact is something that you can check out in the world if it's true or false. Usually that's called nonfiction. And as for that smell, what can Ada Twist do but learn all she can with her friends in grade 2? Will they discover the stink that curls toes? Well, that is the question. And someday, who knows? That's it. So in this story, Ada had tons of questions. That was what made her such a scientist. She asked lots of questions, and then she made a hypothesis. Have you heard of that word before? A hypothesis is like a thinking guess. It's not just saying, I think it happened because aliens did it. It's thinking about why maybe it makes sense that it happened that way and giving that reason. Maybe I heard a sound downstairs, and my hypothesis is my son just got home and he opened the door. That would make sense. So Ada asked lots of questions, and then she would make a hypothesis and see if it seemed to be true. And if it didn't work out, she'd make a new hypothesis. Today, we are going to build something called a marshmallow puff tube or a marshmallow shooter. And we are going to try it out, not just with marshmallows, but with different objects we find around our house. And I'm going to ask you to watch and see which ones go farther than the other ones. Which one goes the farthest, which one goes the least far. And then ask yourself questions like, why would that one go the farthest? Why would that one not go very far? Is there something about that thing that makes it go farther or makes it not go very far? And make your own hypothesis as to why. All right, so here's what you'll need, the supplies to gather. Your supplies you'll need is lined paper, 4 or more pieces, tape, scissors, and items to shoot. You need 3 or more things to shoot so you can compare them. Here are some ideas. Maybe you have a cotton ball in your house that you could use. Maybe a ping pong ball. Maybe a foil ball or a paper wadded up ball. Maybe you have some marshmallows, maybe tiny ones, maybe big ones. Anything that you can find that's safe to fly. Like my cat has a little puff toy, and I thought about using that, but then she lost it somewhere under the couch and I couldn't use it. But maybe you'll find something else you think would be a good shooter. These are some of the supplies I found at my house that could work. I found some large marshmallows, some mini marshmallows, some cotton balls, paper, tape, pencil, scissors. I found a few other bouncy balls and a ping pong ball around the house, some foil. All right, well, let's show you how to make a shooter. I have some lined paper here, and the first thing I have from my house is a large marshmallow. And you can see it's kind of like a can. It's a cylinder, which means it goes around here, and then it has these flat edges. And so I'm going to take this marshmallow and lay it on my paper. And actually, let me just get one piece. I'll lay it on my paper kind of in the middle with the round part like this. So I'm going to try to roll the paper around the marshmallow, kind of tight, kind of snug. I don't want it to be too loose because I want it to actually move, but if I make it too tight, it won't come out. So I roll it like this, and I want to check when I get to the end, I'm looking at the lines to see that the lines from this paper and this paper line up. And that's, I know that it's making a straight cylinder and it's not making it more like an ice cream cone. Because if it turned out like an ice cream cone, one end would be really small and the other end would be really big. And do you think it would blow out of the tube very well if it was like that? I don't think that would work quite as well. We're aiming for a tube that's the same all the way down. So I'm going to check on this end too and see if I need to squiggle it. But it looks pretty straight right now because that other tape is holding it. So then I can tape it again and say, okay, the line's pretty straight there. And the line's pretty straight there. Okay. So then I'll check and see. I'll tap it. See if I can get my marshmallow to come to the end. It seems like it's moving, but it's kind of snug in there. It's not moving really easy. So maybe that's good because we want it to be tight enough in there that it actually gets some air. So that's the first one that I want to check. And another one I found, let's see. Another one I found in my house was a cotton ball. And another one I found was this little it's a squishy ball, kind of like Nerf or something. And my son told me it went with one of his Nerf guns or one of his Nerf sets. So it's squishy and soft, but it's got these little bumps on it. Maybe I'll make one for this one because it's a smaller size and you'll see how smaller ones work. So if I do this and I put it in the middle, because it's such a small ball, it's a little harder to get it around smoothly, but it can be done. But what I'd suggest then is maybe the longer you go, the more likely you're going to end up with a cone. And it's harder to do. So I'm just going to take some of this paper and cut it off because I don't need that much paper for this tiny ball. If it works for you, it's fine. But I found it was easier to not have such a long roll. So now I've got my thing rolled. It feels pretty tight. I'm going to roll it some more. Did it line up? Oh, my line's a little off. Let me see if I can tweak it and get it straight. Make it lay right there. pretty good. And then I'll tape it. Here's my tape. I guess I could put the tape in your view, huh? And then I'll check this end. Is that pretty straight? I don't know. This looks a little crooked, but maybe it's because I cut it too. Hopefully it works. So you might try and build a shooter, and it might be a little bit too tight, or it might be a little bit too loose. And what's going on here is if you make it really, really tight around there, then there's a force called friction that will be pushing against the ball as it rubs along the edges. That rubbing is a friction force that keeps it from going very fast, and it might keep it from even coming out. So that's why we don't want it too tight, is because the friction force will be too strong and it won't be able to move very much. But the other problem is if it's too loose. If it's too loose, then what's happening is when you blow in the end, your air is putting a force on the ball, and it's pushing on that ball. But if the ball isn't filling up the whole space, if there's space around it because it's really loose, then the force will just not really happen on the ball because the air will just go around the ball. It won't push the ball, it'll just go around it. So that force will be lost, and it won't make the ball move very much that way either. So it's kind of a process of building and trying again, just like last week's Rosie Revere, the engineer, who had to keep trying, and the first time it didn't work, and maybe the second time it didn't work, and the third time she learned something, and it starts to work better. So this is the second one. I'll tap it. I'll see if I can get it to come. Oh, that one came right out. Ooh, that might be a little too loose on that side. We'll see. Yeah, it's stopping about halfway. So I'm not sure if this is my best build here. But let's see. I'll stop it here, and then we can show you how they work. All right, so this is our first one, and you can see the big marshmallow there in the end. And I want it to be pretty close to the end so it has lots of time to go fast in the tube before it comes out. And it looks pretty tight, don't you think? So let's see how it goes. You ready? 1, 2, 3. That one went pretty far. So here's our next one. Remember the little squishy ball? I'll put it in. Actually, look, it's not going very far in. I think this one's more like a cone. I think this one's getting skinnier here and it's wider here. I'll go like that. Well, I don't think it's gonna come out this side, so I'll blow on this side and I'll see what happens. But it's only like, it's about right here, so it's not all the way to the end like the marshmallow. And it is a different object. So let's see. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Ooh. Well, that one rolls. So I don't know. What do you think, guys? I made another tube because the other one was more like a cone. And I think this one's a little bit more of a cylinder, and see, it's all the way on the end. So I'm gonna give it a go. You ready? 1, 2, 3. There we go. Okay, so here I want to show you all the different shooters that I've made. You saw me make this one for the little yellow ball and the marshmallow. Then I crumpled up a ball of paper and I made this one. I made a foil ball. I just crumpled up foil and then I made this one. This one was for a mini marshmallow. The orange one's a ping pong ball. This yellow ball's a little thicker than a ping pong ball. I'm not really sure what game it came with. This is like a regular bouncy ball. It's kind of heavier than the other balls. And this is a cotton ball, and it kind of got a little misshapen, it looks like. But maybe that's because I tried shooting it. So now that we have done some testing and we've tried it out, it's time to ask some good questions and make a hypothesis, a thinking guess of why that could happen. So we're going to ask questions just like Ada Twist, the scientist, right? And we could ask things like, which ones went the farthest? Was it my marshmallow? Was it my little yellow ball? Was it my foil ball that I didn't show you? Or was it my cotton ball or the ping pong ball or the swirly ball? Which of them went the farthest? And what does it mean to go the farthest? Because I noticed that my yellow ball, when it flew through the air, it landed and then it rolled a really long ways. And the marshmallow seemed to go farther before it landed, but maybe it didn't roll as far. Maybe they both went the same distance after rolling. So you have to decide. So is it how far until it hits the ground, and you're going to compare there? If that's the way I'm comparing, and I think I'm going to compare that way, I'd say the marshmallow went farther than the yellow ball. And then I'd have to ask myself, what do I notice about the ones that go farther? Are they bigger? Are they smaller? Are they heavier? Are they lighter? Are they smoother? Are they rougher? What is it about those ones? Did they have a more perfect cylinder tube that I was able to make for them? And if I start noticing certain things with those ones, I could say, maybe my hypothesis is that the one with the best cylinder is the one that's going to go the farthest. Or maybe the one that is the lightest is going to go the farthest. Or the one that's the biggest is going to go the farthest. And once I make my hypothesis, then I can go back and try it out again and see if it proves true. I should go try it. If I decided that the ones that they're the biggest should go the farthest, then I'll try all my big ones and see how far they go, and then try my small ones and see if any of them go farther than the big ones. Because if they do, then maybe my hypothesis doesn't prove true, because a small one is actually going farther than a big one. So I want you to think about your situation. Which things did you try? Which ones went the farthest? And what do you notice about them? What do you say is my hypothesis? And then go check it out and see if you can prove it. When you're finished, share your results with me. Here's how. So just like before with the sink and float lesson, I have a shared document that you can put your objects that you tried, such as a foil ball, a big marshmallow, a cotton ball. Which one went the farthest? Maybe it was the foil ball. I'm just giving an example. What was your hypothesis? Maybe I thought because my foil ball was smaller than the other things that maybe it went farther. So I'd have to test it out, but that's my first thought. Maybe my name is Eduardo and I'm in Mrs. Niece's class. This is an example line. So when you come to this page, you come to the next line underneath and you type in the things that you did, which one went the farthest, and then what your hypothesis is. Is it that your object was heavier or lighter or smoother or rounder, or what about it made it go so far? Then you put your name and your teacher's name, and then you come back later and check out what did your friends test out and what did they learn. All right, that's it. Find the link to this shared document in the comments below on YouTube. Have fun, guys.